Now, I just want to clarify some things, from here and there, and then we'll move on. If you remember, in Mitzvah Pei Daled, the Rambam has a mitzvah lahakriv kol karbonos bebeis הבחירה לבד, והוא אמרו יסעלה וחום תעשה כל אשר אנוכי מצווך. This is based on the Sefer, as the Ram says, because the Sefer says this is a mitzvah Aseh. And the Sefer really is not interested in the mitzvah Aseh of Halah, or whatever it is. The interest of the Sefer is the lav, if you remember, and that the lav is not only by oila of Halah, but by all karbonos. Okay? The three psukim before this, Shom Ta'aseh Kol Asher Anochi Mitzaveka, that's Pasuk Yud Aleph. This is Pasuk Yud Daled, okay, in Perek Yud Beis, okay, Pasuk Yud Aleph. Pasuk Yud Aleph. It says like this: V'hoya mokim asher yivcha Havaya Elokeichem l'shakin shmo shom shomo toviu eis asher anochi mitzaveko mitzave eschem o l'seichem zivcheichem u'maasrechem t'shumas yedchem v'chol mitchanvirechem asher tidu l'Hashem. The Ram does not bring this posik as a mitzvah, but interesting, in the Pirush Mishnah, the Mishnah of Zvachim, Perek Yudal, Mishnah Beis, and Mishnah Tes, the Rambam learns from Shomo Toviu the mitzvah say that you're supposed to be be makiv in the mikdash and not in other places. And Rashi is like that in Pasuk Yud Aleph, and this is the Ramban in Asogas to Mitzvah Pei Hey. But the Ram is Sefer Mitzvahs as opposed to his Pirush HaMishnah, and the Mishnah Torah has two separate mitzvahs: one mitzvah of Havah and one mitzvah of Hakrova, Halah, Shchita, and Halah. Havos HaKorban and Hakrovos HaKorban. You can't learn, and the Ram holds that he doesn't learn from Pasuk Yud Aleph, because you can't learn a mitzvah Hakrova from Havah, because it's a separate thing, according to the Rambam. And that's what he has, and that's just an introduction to understand mitzvah mem a mitzvah mem pei hey, I mean, a mitzvah chomesh u'shmonim, hish livono lohovi kol ma shenoch hayom mechatas v'oilo v'yoshim u'shlomim el beis habechira. The Pasuk Yud Aleph is a mitzvah of Havah. And this mitzvah, Pei Daled, is a mitzvah of Akrova. Lahakriv kol karbonos bebeis habchira, and the Ram holds that it's two separate mitzvahs in the minyan. Okay, that's just an important hakadama to understand what is in front of us. Okay, now let me go to Pei Hey. And then we should, after we finish Pei Hey, I just want to, because I left some of the Pei Vav a little bit last week, and I didn't finish it 100%, and then believe that we'll go on. We'll see. Okay, let's do Pei Hey first. Mitzvah Pei Hey. Mitzvah hachomesh u'shmonim. He shezivonu lahavi kol ma shanachnu chayovim mechatos v'oilo v'oshom u'shlomim el beis habechira. So again, according to the Rambam, mitzvah say pei dalid, his akrovos, korbanos beis bechira, and this mitzvah pei hey is a mitzvah avos, korbanos beis bechira, and the Rambam holds they're two separate mitzvahs. And that's the Rambam says, Lahovi kol ma shanachnu chayov mechatos v'ola v'oshim v'shlomer beis bechira. Afapi shehem b'chutz laretz. Okay, that I'm not getting involved in the moment. Kloima afapi shnischayvu lehem b'chutz laretz. Hine nisavinu lahavi lebeis habechira. V'gozel lo seisam im erech aderech. The Rambam is mechadish that hakvo and hakrova are shtei mitzvahs, and l'chseira we should have said, according to Shiur Beis, that there should be mitzvah achas, because there are many maisim which are necessary for akrova sakova. Navo is kilu part of akrova. The Ramban in Asogis on this mitzvah writes the following: the aid zo HaMitzvah ledati bo b'cheshbon shanach zavinu lahovi kol hakochim lebeis habechira bein sheheim ba'aretz oy b'chutzot kol mokum sheheim shom yuvu v'yikuvu v'akol mitzvah achas v'mikros marbim v'holchim v'loshen sifri kachu rak kodeshecha sheyiu lochon nedorecha tiso v'oso ma kosa b'davi b'koche chutz laretz harei he b'koche haaretz agva omo, or enu medaber ela b'koche chutz laretz, v'ated lomed mizeh sheb'chol hakochim he inyan shove u'mitzvah achas litap u'bavos u'lakriv beis habechira. Okay, now so let's now I want to suggest something, then I want to suggest something else. Okay, let's start slowly. Okay. The first suggestion is that the Ramban, let's start before. The Ramban holds that Avo Akrovo is all one mitzvah. And the Rambam is clear that Avo is not a chelik of the mitzvah. But, you can say maybe it's only a hechsher mitzvah. But since the pasuk says, "V'akol shecha shiur lecho undorecho tiso uvos el hamokim," so the Torah is going out of the way to say that it's not just a hechsher mitzvah, it's a separate mitzvah. And this mitzvah is learned out from Yud Beis, Yud Perik, Yud Beis, Yud Dalit. Ki im hamokum sheyivcha Hashem b'yachad shvarecha shom ta'aseh v'shom ta'aseh kol asher anochi mitzaveko. That is Akrova. And in the Akrova there are two lavim, Fa'alon and Shechita. These two lavim are about two separate pulos. One is Akrova, Halon, and one is Shechita. And the Aseh, l'chayra, is everything. Okay. So we already referred to the Hakrova in Shom Taseh v'chom Taleh v'chom Taseh. And then what's happening in this pasuk, Tisu Vasa, is something different. You have to weigh the strength of this. But you see, I'd like to suggest something and another approach, and maybe this approach is a lot better. See, I'm wondering over here, why is the Rambam talk so much? He says, "Shetzivonu lahavi kol." See, the first approach is you wouldn't know it's a hechsher anyway, because you can't be makav unless it's there. So the fact the pasuk says a separate pasuk of tiso vasa, no, you learn it's a separate mitzvah. That's one approach. Okay. Now, I just want to ask a question. Why is the Rambam so graphic and so prolific over here? Kol ma she'anachnu chayovim mechatos v'eila v'oshom u'shlomim. Why does he do that? Okay, suggestion. The Ram says in Shiur Yud Beis that those mitzvahs which are part of a Seder Oila are part of the Seder Oila. That which is part of Seder Oshim is part of Seder Oshim. So the Ram says you can't put this in Shiur Yud Beis. You know why? You know why not? Because it basically is on all karbonis. And the same way the Ram says Malicha is a separate mitzvah, which is by all karbonis. And Tomim is a separate mitzvah by all karbonis. And to be Yom HaShmini V'Hola is a separate mitzvah, even though it is really part of the Seder HaKrava. Kol Shekain here, which is really not part of the Seder HaKrava, it's Avor. But since it's shaykh to all karbonos, you shouldn't even have a piskin peh to say that it is a part of the Seder of all these karbonos, because as the Ram says, it's not worse than Malicha. That's another approach. And then you see, according to the first shot, it's like a shtickle Torah. Like we would have known anyway that it's action. Why does the Torah go out there? Tisa, what's a tisa? A voss a tisa, tipo, whatever. So so that's telling you that it's a mitzvah. But then you don't understand why the Rambam goes out of his way and says chatos, oila, osham ushlamim. So the Rambam wants to tell you this is Shiur Yud Beis, that the same way that Malicha and Tomim and B'yom HaShmini V'Hola is a separate mitzvahs, he also is a separate mitzvah. Okay? And he does the same thing for Achila. There. Okay. So that's my suggestion. See, if you don't like my suggestion, the question is why the Ram say this. So the Ram, see, you have to ask yourself, okay, but say, and what about oifos? Okay, what about oifos? So oifos could have been really, because they're oifos by shlomim, excuse me, oifos by oilo and oifos by chatos, right? And you could have said such a thing here, and in the mitzvah and the potem mitzvahs. In Mishnah Torah, he's very clear about it. He says the mitzvah is on behema b'davka. And especially as you would assume, because the Torah says tiso vasa. And there's no tiso vasa in oifos. I don't think. Maybe a chesed, I don't know. Let's see, Cajun. There's a Kesef Mishnah, v'tzoch tamu v'port rabbeinu v'kosev korbanos behemos. Yes, it's kasha. So the truth is, the Torah says, Ki yichak mimcha mokin, asher yivcha Hashem Elokecha, losum shmo shom, v'zavachta mibekolcha u'mitzoncha. It's listing behemos. Asher nosan Hashem Elokecha, asher nosan Hashem l'cho, kasher tzivi sicha, v'yochalta b'shorecha b'chol avos nafshecha. So since this parsha of Avos Korbanos is really in contrast to Shchitas Chulin, so there, if it's Chulin, it's Achmuta. And we're talking about, the whole discussion is about Behema. So maybe the discussion over here is also about Behema. And maybe that's what Tisa means. Tisa of Asa, and Tisa is by Behema. So you have to know. Okay? Next. So here again, it talks about Beis HaBchira. The Ochim el Beis HaBchira, we talked about this. L'chera, there was certainly a mitzvah, in Shiloh and whatever. Whether now the mitzvah is dafka Beis HaBchira, we have to know what it means. Okay, beseder. Now, here starts the problems. It says, now here, let's go slowly. Now, kol ma she'anachnu chayovim, mechatos, v'ola, v'oshim v'shlomim. Okay, that's good. El Beis HaBchira is also okay. Let's say it. El Beis HaBchira. Now, apapi shehem b'chutz la'aretz. So it means what apapi shehem b'chutz la'aretz. It means that the mitzvah is nohegis b'chol karbonos, even karbonos ba'aretz, and the chiddush is even in karbonos chutz la'aretz. Correct? That's the word say. Apapi. Now, let's now see what he says in Mishnah Torah. In Hilchos Ma'aseh Korbanos, Perek Yud Ches Halacha Aleph, Mitzvah Aseh Liyos Kol Adam, the Mitzvah Aseh Liyos Kol Adam Metapel Umevi Korbanos Behema Shenischayev Lahakrivom Michutz La'aretz Lebeis HaBchira. So don't you get the impression reading this Rambam? Let's read it again. V'chein mitzvah aseh liyos kol adam mitapel umevi korbanos behemo shnischayev la'akrivom mechutz la'aretz lebeis HaBchira. So here you get the impression that the mitzvah is dafka from chutz la'aretz, correct? There's no FOP in Mishnah Torah, and that l'chayr is what it says, correct? And now let's just continue. Let me skip a little bit. והוא אמרי רק כל שחשיב לכל דרך תיסובוס על המוקם ולושן ספרי. אז הוא לושן ספרי, קודשך, אינו מדבר אלו בקודשי חוץ לארץ. So is it both or is there only one? So the Rambam, the truth is Rambam Mishnah is gewaldig because that is the Sifri. Eino medaber elo b'kodshei chutz la'aretz. The Rambam over here is technically a parah because he starts off and he says, Falpi, that the mitzvah is certainly in Eretz Yisrael, and it's even a chutz la'aretz, and the Sifri itself is only it only speaks about chutz la'aretz as the Rambam Mishnah says. So the Rambam here quotes the Sifri verbatim, and the conclusion should be no, that it's only chutz la'aretz, but at the beginning he says afapi. In mina mitzvah kotzer, pei litapel ba'avos karbonos michutz la'aretz lebeit הבחירה, שנאמר הכל תשורה שיהיו לכו, ונדורכו תיסו ובוסו. פי השמואל למדו, שאינו מדבר לא בקודשי חוץ לארץ. In minion mitzvah kotzer is also mefurish, like in Mishnah Torah. In the Platei mitzvah nuchos ma'aser karbonos, lahavi kodshei chutz la'aretz lebeit habachira. Okay, so it's mamash pella. The Sifri is mefurish like that. So is he, and that is his opinion in Miyah Mitzvah Kotzer, and in Platei mitzvahs, and in also in Mishnah Torah. And here he quotes a Sifri verbatim, exactly what you are, and he says, Afapi. We don't know where he's coming from. You know, you could say, but it's a doichek, that the Afapi Shehem im Oirech Haderech, and it's only Afapi Shehem Oirech Haderech Chutzot. It's not a clean reading of the Rambam, to say the least. Okay, so this is the problem. We don't understand this. Okay. The Sifri seems to say only chutz la'aretz. Next, let's go back. I'm just showing you we don't understand exactly what the mitzvah is. Each is ivonu lahavi kol ma shanach da'ayovim bechatos v'oilo v'oshem u'shlomim el beis habechira v'afapi shehem b'chutz la'aretz. Kloima afapi shehischayavnu bohem b'chutz la'aretz. It's not where they are, but where we took upon ourselves the schayvus. That's odd. Orech haderech makes sense all in terms of where you bring it from, not where you machayiv yourself. Right? So the Ram's saying that the mitzvah is she's chayavnu behem b'chutz la'aretz. The chutz la'aretz, as we said, is only terech haderech or orech haderech. The mitzvah should depend upon where the korban is when he's bringing it, not where he was machayiv himself. you could say, but I think it's a little difficult because in Bechor, in Laarez, the Ram's opinion, there's no akrova. Whether it's kedusha, that's a different issue, but certainly there's no akrova. And here, no, the chiddush is you makav it. That's what it's afbishneschayvu. But what's it to do? Afbishneschayvu is telling you chiddush to the korban shvach. It's very, very shvach to say such a thing, I think. Beseder. Next. So the Ram here, again, he's learning from the Pasuk, Rak kodeshecha, asher yiyu lecho nudorecho, tisa uvosa el hamokim. The mitzvah is learned from this pasuk. What? Rak kodeshecha sheyiyu lecho, unudorecho tisa uvosa el hamokim sheyivchar Hashem. This pasuk is the parsha of Het Shchitas Chulin and the Knisa Bnei Yisrael Eretz Yisrael. And the parsha is telling you that Basa Chulin, you're allowed to do a Shchitas Chulin in Eretz Yisrael. And you don't have to bring it to the Mishkan as a Shlomim. But this hete is limited to Behemoth Chulin. But Behemoth Kodesh, Kol Kodeshech and Dorecho, you have to bring it to Beis HaBchira. And then that this pasuk, you tell me the chiyuv to be maybe a korban lemikdash hakrova is even more chagachik. That's a question, include or not. But in chulin, there's no chiyuv, and even if it's rochak, wherever it is, a korban where even if it's rochak, you have to bring it to mikdash. You see, I'll tell you, so see, here there's a problem. Because you look at the parsha, there's no mention in the parsha of Laarez. The parsha is talking about when Klal Yisrael come to Eretz Yisrael. There's no mention of Laarez. So, if you want to tell me there's a chiddush of also Laarez, but the parsha includes Eretz Yisrael, we understand it. Even the Sefer doesn't seem to say like that, but we understand what's going on. The whole mitzvah, the whole Sefer HaMitzvos makes sense. Okay? But if you say that it's only Laarez, that in the parsha, which is basically talking about the het shchit in Eretz Yisrael, you're not that kilu, that is a mitzvah from Laarez, where you're not, where the parsha is talking about Eretz Yisrael, is mamish kulei pella. Okay? So, again, even though the Lashon Sefer certainly supports Mishnah Torah and the Protei Mitzvahs and the Mir Mitzvah Kotzer, the parsha itself, where this is talking about, where it's a parsha in Eretz Yisrael, to say that the mitzvah is only in Laarez is very odd, to say the least. Now, okay. So you can say, oh, das steht in Sefer. The Sefer is a Pirish Makubal. And Ki'ilu, even though the Luhitis Apasha seems to say that it's Eretz Israel, the Matiki Yeshua say that it's Alkof Chutzlad, you know. Kach Kibalnu, okay, you know. You have to know whether Matiki Yeshua, the Pirish Mishnais, Lakdomo, whether it has to jive with the Psukim or can't go against, you know, I'm not, you know, I'll leave that to you to think about it, okay? The chinuch, listen to this. Asks on the Rambam in Mishnah Torah, why is the mitzvah only chutza? It's not in Eretz Israel. Says Alpi shebasnu mitzvah lahakrib kol koma beis habchira kmo shekasafti b'seder zeh. Mitzvah tof mem, according to the chinuch. Afa pikein bo lonu mitzvah miuchedes al korbonos chutz laaretz. וכן הוא בספרי, רק כל השכה אינו מדבר על קודשי חוץ לארץ. תיסובוסו מלמד שחי בטיפול אבוס מצ'י לבית הבחירה. ושם אומרו שזה החיוב הוא בחטוס ואושר ואוילו שלומים. ואפשר שנאמר שנסייחתו לנו מצווה בקודשי חוץ לארץ להזהירנו עליהם מפני הטרח בוהן מרבה מרובה מקודשי הארץ שהן קוראים הבית בישראל. Okay, it's a song. Okay, if that's whatever it means, that's what it means. But that's, you have to explain why the mitzvah is only chutz la'aretz. Okay, the Ram here is okay. The Rambam, excuse, one second. Now, there's another phrase here. It says in Sifri, Melamed Shechayiv Betipol Havo Aseh. It's not only Havo, it's Tipol Havo Aseh, which sounds almost like Bechor. Into 40 days, you have to, you have to care for it, you have to nurture it, it's a very interesting thing. Okay, Tipol. Okay. Now, okay, there's a lot to talk about. People talk about it. I don't know, but I thought about this a lot, and I'm not sure. Because you ask me, why didn't I say this? Why did I say the Sifri? Why did I say the Tosefta Bikum? Why did I say it's not clear to me. You hear a little no Muslim in the inclination that this really belongs here at all. Okay. Now, next, Now, let's go back now to the Lashon. The Lashon Sifri, Kodeshecho, Eino Medaber Ela B'Kodesh Chutz La'aretz. Tisu Vos Melamed Shechai B'Tipol Havosai. Ad Sheyaviu Ad Sheyavienu Leveis HaBchira. Uposku Shom Shezeh Omnom Hu B'ma She'Yischayev Kol Ish B'chatos Mechatos V'Ola V'Oshom U'Shlomim. Again and again, why is the Ram stressing this? First of all, what's Kol Ish? Okay. Kol Ish, I would assume that's including Chutz La'aretz. I don't know. It's only people with Chutz La'aretz that we're talking about. What's Kol Ish? Okay. And maybe that's the Ram's Raya, maybe that the Sifri is Lav Dafka. Maybe, okay. But why does he stress again? Mechatos v'ola v'osham u'shlomim. Okay. See, if you say what I said, that this is only a mitzvah, minyan mitzvahs, because it applies to all of them, the Rama wants to stress that he knows the Matiki Ashmur, that this applies to all of them, and that's how he knows it's a separate mitzvah. And that's what he throws at the end. That's beautiful. Okay? That's what I would suggest. Now,
Tapach doesn't have kolish. He just says ha'adam. This, whatever it's worth.
One second, hold everything. If you that's important for you, give me a second, okay?
Yeah.
What number mitzvah is this? Just tell me. Okay. No. I mean something. I know what I'm doing. I just maybe a second. One second. The Kol Ish, really is, just okay. Okay. 1 second. Okay. What does Kapach have? Nothing?
That's ha'adam, yeah. It says b'mashin is chayiv.
That's the same thing in Ibn Ayoif, shin is chayiv le'odom.
Okay.
But I don't know. It seems to be more of a global thing than, okay. But truth is, my interest was not that. My interest is mechatos v'osham v'oilu shlomim. That's my interest. Okay?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is a very interesting observation. Okay? Now, okay. Okay, good. Now, I like to, at the end, a pay vav we were talking about last week. Excuse me. Now, I'd like to go over the end of pay vav, okay? Okay. Now, I'll ask you a question. Just is that what he says, right? At the end of pay Yeah, right? At the end of Pevav, anybody quote the Sifri? Loshen Sifri? Rak b'chol avas nafshecho tizbach eno medabe el b'psul mokdosh sheyiftu. Okay? Correct?
Yes.
Okay. No, we'll see in a second. Just one second. Just one. Okay. We'll see. Okay. Now, let's just go slowly. The Rambam in Isui Mizbeach, Perek Aleph, Halacha Yud, Umitzah say he lifteis kochim shenola ben mum, v'yetzel l'chul v'yochul, shenem rak b'chol avas nafshecho tizba v'echalta bosa. Pir Shmuel lamdu, she'akosim medabe b'sul mekdoshim sheyipodu. Okay? Ukvar bi'alnu be'erchin, שזה שנאמר, ואם כל בהמה טמא אשר יקריבו ממנה קורבן להשם, שהוא מדבר בבעלי מומים שיפודו. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, this we were talking about at the end of the Shiur last week. You know, what does the Rambam want with this? Okay? Why is the Rambam in Hilchos Yisuim Mizbeach, what does he want with the reference to Hilchos Erchin v'Charamim? What does he want with it? Kvar b'yarnu be'erchin shezeh shenema v'im kol behema tmei asher lo yakrivu v'imeno korban l'Hashem. This is one of two psukim. In Pasuk Yud Aleph, this is in Perek Chav Zayin, Pasuk Yud Aleph. V'im kol behema tmeya. Excuse me. Im kol behema tmeya. V'im. Excuse me, sorry. V'im kol behema tmeya. Asher lo yakriv mimena korban l'Hashem. V'hemid es ha-behema l'fnei ha-kohen v'herich ha-kohen oiso ben tov v'lorav Ben Tov uvein Ra, ke'el chakoin ken yeh. And that the Gemara Tmura on Lamed Aleph on the base says these two psukim are referring not to a behemoth tmeya, but to a behemoth of which is roi for a korban, roi the korban, and it was a korban, but it was nifsal of the moon. Behemoth Tmeya, we learn out from Pasuk Chav Zayin there. V'im bebehemoth hatmeya for the be'erchov Yosef Chamishi say all of v'im lo yigoyel v'im kaber kecho. So we have in B'chukosai Mefush Pasuk that there's pidyon in Psul Mekdashim. So what's the Ram want with here? What's going on in A? What's the pasuk b'chukosai? And it's just the opposite. The pasuk in A, there's no mention of Psul Mekdashim. We don't even know what it is. Okay, and there's no mention of pidyon. And there, we're talking about the pidyon and how you do the pidyon. Hamod of Arocha with a ganze Meiser. Hoisofes Chomesh. So you take the pasuk which doesn't talk about anything. That's the mitzvah. And interesting, the Rambam learns the pasuk in B'chukosai as the source for a different mitzvah. The mitzvah of Elkei Behema. Dahainu, how you play there a Behema. When you play there, either Behema Tmei or Behema Teira. There's Hamod of Alocha, and if you're playing the Hosefes Chomesh with the whole din. And that's the Hamod of Alocha. It's a separate mitzvah. That's Kuf Tezvav in Minyan HaMitzvos. The Ram calls this mitzvah as a shrana. What's a shrana? Shrana is a din. There's no obligation. The question is, if you want to be paid there, how you paid there? Here, this mitzvah is an amah. It's an obligation. The Rambam then does a very strange thing in Mishnah Torah. He quotes that the makor, the mitzvah, is in A, and he has a reference to Hilchos Erchim, okay? And the Hamot V'Alocha, and Pidyon in Psul Mukdoshim. Okay. So I thought this was shot, and so I found Rabbeinu Hillel says it, okay? So I'll call Rabbeinu Hillel. Rabbeinu Hillel in Sifri, Vi amit menole, the bali mumeniftin. Vi amit, the Sifri, Vi amit menolon, the bali mumeniftin. But since we learn the mitzvah is rak b'chol avas nafshecho, tizbach v'yochalta boso kebikas Hashem Elokecho, and in this pasuk it doesn't talk about pidyon. So Rabbeinu Hillel brings the pasuk v'im kol behema tmeya asher kumeno korban Hashem v'herech hakoyin oiso bein tov u'bein ra ke'ach hakoyin ken yiyeh. And according to the Gemara in the Sefer, behema tmeya is the behema shehukdash lekorban v'nofel b'mum v'her hakoyin shezaroch l'tzorch pidyon. So that you need pidyon, you know, from the pasuk in B'chukosai, and that's a din. But there's the HaMitzvos from pidyon. The Ram learns you only know from Re'eh. And that learns from Rak. B'chol avas nafshecho, tizbach v'yochalta boso kevikas Hashem Elokecho. And that's what Ram's doing. The question is, how does that happen? Okay, so I'll just ask you a question now. And now at least we understand what happened over here. I think before that we didn't understand anything. Can I ask you, just, to translate, it says, Einu medaber el besur ha'mekdoshim sheyiftu yipodu. How do you translate the last part of the sentence? El besur ha'mekdoshim sheyiftu shipodu. What does it mean? How do you translate it? How do you translate the last word in that sentence? Just in English. It's the third person future. I don't know whether it's peel, whatever, right? We don't, but what does it mean? Does it mean that they should be nifter? That they should be nifter? And maybe there's illusion over here in the Sifri that this is the mitzvah. It's a very odd thing, because in the pasha of Erche Behema, which includes Behema Tmeya Mamish and Behema the Psul Mukdoshim, there's a pasha of Modarocha with Hisofis Chomish. But how do you know it's a Chatzivui?
So from the Chukosai alone, it will just be like an option. The very fact that it says twice.
Yeah, but I want to tell you something, 100%, but let me ask you something. Let's say B'chukosai would only be talking about Behemas, Kochim, Shenofel Boimum. Would it have been a separate mitzvah, or would it have been part of telling you, would be part of the dinim of this mitzvah?
No, that's I thought. B'chukosai alone is a rishus. Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah.
How do you have two mitzvahs, minyan mitzvahs? So maybe it's because the pasuk in B'chokosai includes behemoth tmei mamish, and it's just a general din how you played the behemoth. And Osafas Chomesh, but how we apply it over here with the Matiki Ashmua that the mitzvah is not Achil and Zvicha, as Rabbi Yucham Pura said, maybe it should have been this, maybe it should have been that. Okay, Zvicha we have anyway a mitzvah of Shchita, right? In this parsha. Correct, according to the Ram, it's Ramah. It's not Stam Shran, as the Minchas China suggests it should have been. Okay, so good. And the Ravid says that it's an Aseh, so there's a mitzvah of Shchita. So we're not talking about Shchita. Achila, we don't know what it is. Yeah. So the comes to Sifri, it says she podu. But it's a very odd thing. What's the yeah. But all I'm just telling you, without the Isuim is without the Erch, we don't know what we're talking about. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Here we know what we're talking about. The question is, how do we know that it's a mitzvah? How do we become an amar? And is there an illusion in these words? She pondered to say that. His kein lachacham, is that what it means? It's a very odd that the Sifri should have been in the third person future. Correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But however, to be honest, okay, if we look at the Sifri learns, it's talking about Psul Makdoshin from the process of elimination. That we talk about Chul. So it doesn't make any sense. If the only reason we know it is the process of elimination, so then how do you make it into a mitzvah? You own Mלמשח. Either you know something, you don't know something else. So I can tell the Chacham come and tell me, no. Chacham come and tell me that if there's no emes in the pasuk, you don't know it's like that, then it can't be Pirush Makubal. Okay, so we know that's all about that. And the Kabbalah is it's a mitzvah. You want it, you can leave it, but just telling you the Ram Lechera is quoting the Sifri to say it's a mitzvah. The question, how do you see it? Okay, we say that. Hatzloch Rabba. Mitzvah Shem will pick this up. Now I don't think it's enough time to start a new mitzvah now, and we'll pick it up mitzvah Shem next week. Believe that. Hatzloch.